You're listening to Faith, Stewardship, and Insurance, Protecting Texas Churches. The show that gives pastors and church leaders the clarity they need to protect their people, property, and ministry.
Welcome back to Faith Stewardship and Insurance, Protecting Texas Churches. I'm your host, Ron Wadley with Insurance for Texans. We help church leaders to protect their people and property with wisdom and clarity. If you've been shopping for church insurance lately and an agent asked you for something called loss runs, you probably stopped to try and figure out what they were talking about. Over the last few years, churches all across Texas have been hit with non-renewal notices and premium increases that feel downright impossible to absorb. Property insurance costs are climbing fast, and many churches are being forced to look for new coverage, whether they wanted to or not. That's exactly where a church in Tyler found themselves. Their finance committee was sitting around the table staring at a renewal notice with a premium increase that made no sense for their already tight budget. Someone on the committee was tasked with finding new coverage, and as they started making calls, one thing kept coming up over and over again: the request for loss runs. Even though everyone wanted them, no one had really explained what they were exactly, but it was clear they weren't getting a quote without them. Let's take a little time to understand loss runs better. A loss run report is simply a record of your church's insurance claims history. It shows whether you've filed claims, what those claims were for, how much was paid, and whether anything is still open. That's it. No mystery, no trick. Insurance companies use loss runs to understand risk. In a market like Texas, where hail, wind, and water claims have exploded, they're not guessing anymore. They want proof. Here's the part most churches don't realize. There is no central database for church insurance claims like there is for auto insurance. When you shop for car insurance, companies can instantly see your driving record. With churches, they can't. Loss runs are the only way an insurance company knows whether your church has been claim-free for years or has had repeated losses. That Tyler Church had never filed a claim. They had paid premiums faithfully for years, but without a loss run report, they couldn't prove it. And without proof, every insurance company has to assume that your church is a risk. That's why agents keep asking for them. Loss runs don't just affect whether you get coverage. They affect how much you pay, what coverage is offered, and sometimes whether a carrier will even consider your church at all. A clean loss history can work in your favor. On the other hand, multiple claims, especially recent ones, can push premiums higher or limit options. So how do you get them? It is not as hard as you may think. You request them directly from your current insurance company, not your agent, the carrier. By law, they're required to provide them typically within 10 days. If someone refuses or drags their feet, that's a red flag. Churches deserve access to their own records. Once you receive the report, it matters that someone at your church reviews it. Errors happen more often than you'd think. Open claims that should be closed, incorrect payment amounts, claims listed that never actually occurred. Fixing those issues before submitting the report to a new insurance carrier can make a real difference. The Tyler Church did exactly that. They worked with a church insurance specialist who reviewed their loss runs, confirmed everything was accurate, and then presented them properly to new carriers. That one step gave them leverage and clarity in a market that rarely offers either. This is where experience matters. Loss runs are not paperwork for paperwork's sake. They are one of the most important tools you have when navigating today's church insurance environment. They tell your story when you're not in the room. If your church is even thinking about shopping for insurance this year, request and review your loss runs now. You may need an updated copy of them later, But for now, make sure everything is correct. At Insurance for Texans, we work with churches every day to find the right coverage. True Texas church insurance isn't about rushing you into a policy. It's about asking the right questions, understanding your history, and presenting your church honestly and accurately to the marketplace. Connect with us at insurancefortexans.com. And if you would like a bigger picture overview of church insurance, get a copy of our book, The Promise of Certainty, at thepromiseofcertainty.com. I'm Ron Wadley, and this has been Faith, Stewardship, and Insurance, Protecting Texas Churches. Until next time, remember, insurance isn't about fear. It's about good stewardship.
Thanks for listening to Faith, Stewardship, and Insurance. Until next time, remember, insurance isn't just about policies. It's about safeguarding the mission God has called you to lead.